All right, let's dive into something kind of fascinating. You know how much social media has totally changed the dating game? We're dissecting this lecture that maps out everything from those old school setups to today's dating app craze.
It really is wild how social media isn't just another platform. It's like completely reshaped how we view relationships, potential partners, even ourselves, like the whole search for love thing.
I mean, think back, setting someone up was a nudge at a party. A blind date was like this big deal now. It's algorithms and profiles making the calls.
Right.
Almost a third of U.S. adults have tried dating apps. That's a lot of people looking for love through tech.
And that kind of makes you think, has all this made us, I don't know, more superficial? Or is it just how we already were? Like, are dating apps the problem or just reflecting our fast-paced, looks-obsessed world?
A good point. So let's look at the good and bad. This lecture points out how dating apps have blown open the possibilities. Your dating pool isn't just your neighborhood anymore. It's global. So many more choices and people you'd never meet otherwise.
Exactly. Like, remember long distance before texting and video chat? Social media has been huge for keeping those connections strong, closing the distance with constant communication.
And don't forget the little ego boost from, digital validation. That,
hmm
on a profile pic can mean a lot, especially for those who find, face-to-face stuff intimidating.
Oh, for sure.
This lecture even had this story about Sarah and Alex. Their whole thing started with playful comments on Instagram, turned into a real romance.
That's awesome. It shows that even with all the talk about, like, being superficial, social media can spark real connections, shared humor, interests. That initial, like, digital spark can become something real. But we got to be real about the challenges, too, right?
Totally. So many options on these apps. But the lecture made me wonder, are we trading depth for, just quantity? Judging too fast based on profiles? Maybe missing amazing people because their online persona didn't instantly grab us?
It's a worry, for sure.
And then there's catfishing, that whole misrepresentation thing. John, from the lecture, experienced that firsthand. And what about the pressure to perform when your relationship's out there for everyone to see? That whole hashtag couple goals thing can create crazy expectations, put a strain on any relationship.
Right. Research even shows that a lot of couples feel that pressure to present a certain image, leading to like comparisons and insecurities that eat away at the actual joy of the relationship. It's a lot to handle.
So it's this weird mix, wider access, more communication, feeling validated, but also potential for superficiality, fakeness, and that public pressure. Tough to navigate.
For sure. And honestly, that's just the beginning. The lecture gets even deeper into how social media affects our dating habits psychologically, and that's where it gets really interesting. Okay, so let's get into the psychology of it all. Social media and dating, this is where it gets kind of wild. The lecture talked about this paradox of choice, basically. Having tons of options can actually make us less happy with what we end up choosing.
Wait, really? You'd think more choices would mean more happiness, right?
You'd think so, but picture this. You're swiping, endless profiles, each one seemingly hotter, cooler, more interesting than the last. It tricks your brain into thinking someone better is always a swipe away.
Oh, I see.
So you get decision fatigue, and even when you do connect with someone, there's this lingering doubt.
Like being in a restaurant with a menu a mile long, too many choices, you end up second-guessing everything.
Exactly. And it's not just the sheer number, it's how curated everything is. Profile pics, witty bios, vacation shots. Everyone's putting their best, most idealized self out there.
So it becomes this, competition, and the expectations get unrealistic.
Totally. We've always wanted to make a good impression, but social media cranks it up to 11, this constant need for validation through likes, matches, comments.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in that.
And then you start comparing your real life to everyone else's highlight reel, feeling inadequate, dissatisfied, and that spills over into how you date.
Which brings us to FOMO, right? The fear of missing out, always thinking there's something better out there. Scrolling through all those happy couples, trips, romantic gestures, it can make anyone question their own relationship.
Even if it's perfectly fine, yeah. FOMO feeds on insecurity, makes you crave stuff you might not even genuinely want. It's like a recipe for never being satisfied, always feeling one step behind in the happiness game.
So the lecture also mentioned how our attachment styles affect online dating. What's that all about?
Right, so attachment style, secure, anxious, avoidant, these are patterns formed early on. They affect how we approach all L relationships, online too.
Okay, break it down for me.
So someone secure, they're comfy with intimacy, A&D, being independent. Confident, they use dating apps for fun, not to feel validated. Open to meeting people, but not desperate, they got a good balance.
Makes sense. What about the anxious type?
Anxious folks, they crave closeness, reassurance. They're constantly checking apps, need validation from matches and messages. It leads to overthinking, anxiety, fear of rejection, the whole nine yards.
Ah, so that's why some people get invested in online dating validation.
Mm.
What about the avoidant ones?
Avoidant types, they value independence, being alone. They might use apps for casual stuff, but shy away from serious commitment. They might ghost, end things abruptly, keep their distance.
It's amazing how these patterns from way back play out in the digital world.
It is. Knowing your own style helps you navigate online dating better. Make choices that actually work for you, emotionally and relationship-wise.
For sure. So all this leads to like a whole new set of rules for dating, right? We've gone from letters and phone calls to emojis and DMs.
It's a whole new language, flirting, communicating, and it's constantly changing. Like knowing how to flirt over text, that's an art form now. Emojis, response times, teasing, it all matters.
I bet it's easy to misinterpret stuff in text. Like a late reply could mean anything, busy at work or not interested, and you're over here freaking out.
You got it. Clear communication is key in the digital dating world. Ask questions, be upfront about what you want, avoid all that guesswork and potential heartache.
Speaking of communication, let's talk about ghosting. It's everywhere in online dating, leaving people feeling like, what just happened? Is this just how it is now, or is there something deeper going on?
Ghosting's become way too common, sadly. Some see it as cowardly, but others, it's like self-preservation in this world of endless options where everyone's supposed to move on fast.
Yeah, but come on. Whatever happened to just being decent and sending a message?
Ideally, yeah, honesty and openness would rule. But ghosting usually says more about the ghoster, not you. It's their emotional baggage, not being able to communicate like a grown-up.
That's a good point. It's easy to blame yourself, but sometimes it's just their problem.
Exactly. So bringing this to another important thing, boundaries. Especially online, how much you share your presence as a couple.
That's huge. You see couples posting their whole relationship online, from first date to arguments. Is that like genuine expression or just performing for social media?
It's different for everyone. Some couples love that public thing, others keep it private. The key is talking about it, what feels right for both of you.
So before you tag your partner in everything or share intimate details, have that boundary conversation. Make sure you're on the same page.
Exactly. Clear guidelines upfront can prevent a lot of drama down the road. It's finding that balance, respecting each other's needs, and the relationship itself. Remember, it's your relationship, not a show for everyone else.
This has been super insightful. Paradox of choice, FOMO, attachment styles, communication. It's clear that social media has made dating way more complex. Okay, so we've talked about how dating has evolved, the psychology behind it all, even the new etiquette. What about the future? What's coming next? How's tech going to shape love and connection even more?
That's the thing about tech, right? It never sits still. Just when you think you've got it figured out, bam, new platforms, new trends, new ways of connecting. Dating's a prime example, always changing.
The lecture mentioned some seriously futuristic stuff like VR dating. Sounds straight out of sci-fi, putting on a headset and going on a date with someone across the world.
It's closer than you think. Companies are already building these VR dating experiences, interacting with avatars, exploring virtual places together, even attending virtual events as a couple. It'd be huge for long distance, closing the gap between countries, cultures, all that.
That's wild.
Yeah.
But I gotta ask, can you really feel chemistry, that connection, with a digital version of someone? Part of me thinks you'd miss that spark, that certain something you only get from like real life interaction.
It's the big question, right? And developers are working on it, how to create real emotional experiences in a virtual world. Tech's moving so fast, who knows? Maybe one day we'll transmit touch, smell through VR, make it even more immersive.
Now that would be a game changer. Okay, what about AI matchmaking? Is this robots playing Cupid or something more sophisticated?
Less about robots, more about using data, algorithms to find truly compatible matches. Imagine an app that analyzes your personality, interests, lifestyle, even your social media to find people who really align with you.
Like those personality quizzes, but way more advanced, data-driven. But wouldn't that take away the surprise, the fun of discovering someone organically?
I get that. But AI isn't about replacing human connection. It's about enhancing it. Think of it as filtering out the noise, connecting you with people who share your values, goals, sense of humor, all that. Saves you time, energy. You can focus on building something real with someone who's actually compatible.
Like having a dating assistant, pre-screening matches based on what you want. Speaking of influence, what about social media influencers in dating? They become like relationship gurus, sharing their experiences, giving advice, even promoting dating apps.
They definitely have a big impact on how we see love and relationships. They give you a peek into other people's dating lives, tips, tricks, that relatability factor can be helpful, but also, sometimes misleading.
Like having a virtual big sister giving you dating advice. But gotta be careful, right? Are we taking their word as gospel? Do they really have all the answers? Or are they just showing us the perfect, idealized version of love?
Exactly. Influencers are just people with their own biases, experiences, goals. What works for one might not work for another. Take what resonates, leave the rest.
So take their advice with a grain of salt. Don't feel pressured to have that picture-perfect social media relationship. It's easy to forget that everyone has struggles, imperfections, even the ones who look perfect online.
Couldn't agree more. It's so important to think critically. Be a little skeptical about what you see online. Don't let social media control your dating life or make you feel bad about your own journey. Comparing yourself to others just steals your joy. Being genuine will always be more fulfilling than chasing some ideal.
So as we wrap up this whole deep dive into social media and dating, what are the key takeaways for our listeners? What should they keep in mind out there in the digital dating world?
Enjoy the convenience, the possibilities that social media brings, but use it wisely, intentionally. Be aware of the traps, set those boundaries, and always, always prioritize real human connection above everything else.
And remember, you are worthy, no matter your relationship status, how many matches you get, how many followers you have. Build genuine connections, take care of yourself, and don't be afraid to swipe left on anything that doesn't feel right or match your values.
Love that. And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. Tech is shaping love and connection, but it's up to us to use it ethically, with intention. Let's build a culture of respect, honesty, genuine connection. Happy dating, everyone.